Hello, beautiful people, happy humans, and welcome back. My name is Dana Lisa. I'm the founder of You Are Into It, and today I'm going to be talking about fitting in versus belonging and how to really find your people, your community, where you can show up and be 100% your full self and you are loved, seen, accepted, and recognized. Let's dive in. This is where highly sensitive beings come to thrive in love, life, and business. Welcome to You Are Into It. Prosper as an intuitive empath. So for me, the path to finding true belonging really had to begin with recognizing that there was a core difference between fitting in and belonging. And my whole life, I had just been the kind of girl who fit in. I would minimize myself, I would people please, I would overgive. And this is really common for my empaths, my highly intuitive beings, because we're really, really good at being chameleons. I see you, and I know that you're the type of person who is so good at adapting to your environment because you can feel the environment. You can feel other people's emotional states and well-being. Even if they're not fully expressing, they're not using their words, or they're maybe hiding or masking with their body language what they're truly feeling, as a highly sensitive person, you can actually tap into the true energy of what's really taking place. So in the workplace, in your friend circle, you are an amazing chameleon, someone who is so good at adapting and becoming whoever it is that you need to become in order to kind of smooth things over and not have to deal with confrontation, which can be really overwhelming for someone who's highly sensitive. I know all of this because I've lived it. I was often the type of person who in my friend group would really minimize my true feelings and hide the actual triggers or experiences that I was having in order to be able to hold space for other people so that they would hopefully get back to a place of feeling regulated and everything would be smooth, because I didn't want to have to deal with the confrontation that often comes with going to deeper levels of intimacy. And when we're conforming ourselves to fit in, this is ultimately what we're missing out on. We're missing out on deep intimacy, which we long for in one aspect because it is so amazing to feel seen and loved and recognized for the depth of our gifts, the depth of who we are. It's the feeling of true love, right? Love itself is not conditional. There's no such thing as unconditional love, because if it's really love, it is naturally, innately unconditional. But we've been conditioned and taught to believe that acceptance for our conformity, for us fitting in, is love. And so we have this kind of supplementary experience where we get these little hits of love, of acceptance, of feeling like we belong. And it feels so good that we continue to perpetuate those same behaviors that gave us that little hit. And often these behaviors are conditioned behaviors like people-pleasing, overgiving, minimizing our self-expression, adapting or conforming, being the chameleon, acting as someone who we're not. And that will work for a little while, but eventually that deep yearning, that longing to be fully accepted, to actually be loved, will come back. And our role in this, our responsibility in this, is that we can't really be quote unquote unconditionally loved if we're showing up with conditions. So if we're showing up and we're not fully expressing the truth of our inner world, if we're showing up and we're projecting or blaming or shaming others as the root of the problem without looking at ourself and the mirror that that beautiful relationship is giving us to address our own deep shadow, if we're avoiding doing the inner work, having the conversations, going deeper into intimacy with someone, then we're ultimately also responsible for the fact that we're not feeling fully loved, accepted, and seen. Any feelings of bitterness that we have, or resentment or frustration that we're not being fully loved and accepted for who we are, we have to ask ourselves, well, Is this because I'm also not showing up as the full essence of who I am? And if I'm not showing up as the full essence of who I am, then how is anyone supposed to fully love, accept, and see me for the fullness of who I am? I am quickly interrupting this episode to share a special offering with you. The Thrival Community membership is open for enrollment. This is a monthly subscription for intuitives, empaths, and highly sensitive beings to prosper in every area of their life. We have monthly live mentorship meetups, a community portal off social media to connect with kindred spirits, and resources to support whatever you're growing through. These resources include trainings, masterclasses, templates, and guides for things like growing your spiritual business, awakening your intuitive channel, setting boundaries and protecting your energy, connecting to your intuition, authentic marketing and sales as an empathic entrepreneur, and so much more. As a special gift to you, I'm offering you 25% off your first month in the Thrival community using the code THRIVE at checkout. That's all caps, THRIVE at checkout. I'll see you there. Okay, now back to this episode. So I invite you to think about what are some of the qualities that you have a tendency to hide, or you have been told maybe in an early age family dynamic were unlovable or unacceptable. And so you've worked your whole life to try to avoid other people seeing them in your intimate relationships. But through hiding these attributes, you're actually realizing that you're ending up in bitterness or resentment or frustration, that you don't really truly feel like you belong in the relationships that you're in, that you're not being fully seen, loved, and recognized for the fullness of who you are. So one way to do this is to write down all of the ways that you think other people see you. Make a list of all of the ways that you think other people see you, or that you've had people reflect back to you that you are. You can even ask. Maybe you have a close friend circle, or you have some coworkers or employees that you can ask, what are some of the qualities that you see in me? 3 or 5 qualities that you see in me. Create this list. And then on another list, I want you to create all of the ways that you see yourself. How do you imagine yourself to be? And then I want you to go through this list, and I want you to circle anything that's the same on both. These are like your conscious superpowers. These are the qualities that you've not only acknowledged in yourself, but other people see and acknowledge them in you. These can be great attributes to put in your personal branding if you're building a personal brand. These can be great things to highlight in your marketing because they're things that you've already accepted, acknowledged, and witnessed in yourself, and other people already see them in you too, which means you're already starting to present them to the world, and you can amplify them and turn them all the way up as these places of resonance where people who enjoy those qualities in a person can find you. And then I also want you to look at your list, and anything that you put on your list as a quality that you see in yourself that nobody else has recognized in you. And just get curious about, is this something that I'm hiding from the world? Is this something that I'm masking from the world because I'm scared that if I show up and I am this version of myself, this whole integrated version of myself that fully expresses all of these aspects, that I might be rejected? We have this really core mammalian part of our brain. It's called the mammalian brain. And part of that unconscious mammalian brain is our hardwiring for survival to be accepted by our tribe, to be accepted by the people in our external environment. At some point in human evolution, we developed this to help us survive. It was a survival mechanism that when we were accepted by our community, we were more likely to survive and thrive because we were sharing resources. However, things have changed really rapidly, and we're living in this awesome world of interconnectivity, where if we get rejected by one community, it's actually not life or death anymore. We can be rejected by one community for the fullness of who we are, and we have a lot of tools at our disposal, a lot of ways to connect with the people who are in resonance with the fullness of who we are. So the quest from fitting in, which is being the chameleon, is severing off pieces of our soul, of our truth, in order to try to conform and fit ourselves into a neat box of other people's acceptance, versus belonging, which is showing up as the full expression of who we are and finding communities that see all of that and love and accept us for even the darkness and the light. Is when we are on this path, we have to kind of override this survival instinct to adapt and conform in order to fit in to certain communities. And we have to get really brave and courageous, brave enough to face our own shadow and admit truths, because if we're in denial about these aspects of ourself, then it's going to be really hard to show up in the fullness of them in front of others. First, we have to go within. We have to be willing to see what aspects of myself am I rejecting because I'm so scared that these parts are unlovable. And we have to nurture ourself. This is where a lot of the inner child work comes in. Reparenting our inner child to recognize that these times, often between the ages of 0 and 7, when we're starting to form our conscious identity, we may have learned because of something that could be so small, someone picking on us at the playground when we were in 3rd grade, or our mom making a comment about our ears or the way that we laugh, or, something so seemingly insignificant now that actually had a deep imprint. It was a core memory for us that created a belief, an unconscious belief, that an aspect of us isn't lovable or isn't enough, and we need to hide it from the world in order to be loved and accepted by our community. And when we go back and we recognize these moments that happened and we reprogram these unconscious beliefs in order to be in alignment with what we consciously want, which, if you're here listening to this, I would imagine that what you consciously want is to embrace the fullness of your personal power. You're on a healing journey and you want to love and accept yourself for all of you. You want to let go of the burden of guilt and the burden of shame and come home to the wholeness of who you are in order to create magnetism from a place of your authentic expression and your true personal power. And in order to do that, we have to love and accept these aspects of ourself. We have to find belonging within. We have to decide that just because someone else told us there's something about us that's unlovable, we get to make a choice of, is this fundamentally who I am? And if it is, and it's not something that I desire or can change about myself, then why would I want to keep rejecting myself for being this? What if instead I really found belonging within and I loved and accepted these aspects of myself and I integrated them back into the whole in order to show up in the world as the truth of who I am, so that I can then, as a expression on the external of what's happening on the internal, also find places of belonging in my reality, friend groups of true belonging, relationships of true belonging. And this is so powerful that even in certain dynamics that you already have, that you've maybe had your whole life, such as your family, your relationship with your mom or your dad or your siblings or your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, these relationships that you already have, when you have been conforming yourself to fit in, and you haven't been feeling this sense of love and acceptance because you've been showing up as this fragmented version of yourself, when we step into our wholeness and we find this belonging within, even the relationships that already exist where we aren't feeling love and acceptance and belonging, they will change. The dynamic of those relationships will change, because when we're whole, when we're in integrity, when we're integral, when we're dropped into our worthiness and we're operating from this place of deep gnosis that we are worthy and that we are perfectly imperfect as per God's design, We show up as a radical, self-loving warrior for ourselves who implements incredible boundaries, who creates the communication skills necessary to do things like address confrontation and address conflict without auto response people pleasing or minimizing ourselves in order to try to appease another person. Even if we learned that behavior in our past because it's what was modeled for us, we can learn new skills. And it starts here. It starts with this internal belonging, because when we find that internal belonging, we no longer operate and show up in the world in a way where we're severing off pieces of ourself in order to try to fit in. And everything changes. Our existing relationship dynamics, if there's any toxicity in them, or if there's any unspoken resentment, there might be a little bit of upheaval because things are changing and things are shifting, and things are going to be a little bit uncomfortable for a while because we have to step outside of our comfort zone to make these changes. We got to show up as someone who we've never been before, this self-loving, radical warrior for ourselves who's so in touch with our worth, our innate sense of deservingness, that we're going to be showing up in the world differently. We're going to be holding ourselves differently, speaking differently, setting boundaries differently, communicating differently. And this changes all of our current existing relationship dynamics. And speaking from experience, some of them might fall away. There might be some relationships that don't make it through this shift or this change. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, do I want to continue to keep relationships in my life that are ultimately stopping me from being who I came here to become? I know for me, the answer to that is no way. I am not willing to sacrifice God's mission for me, my purpose, me stepping into my full authenticity and having the impact that I'm here to have. And I'm not willing to not fully love and accept myself within. And because of that, I recognize that not all relationships are for me. There are some people who are not on the same frequency as me. We do not have resonance with one another, and that is okay. I can also love and accept someone and objectively observe where they're at in their process, in their life, their core values, their morals, and recognize, hey, it's not wrong that you have those belief systems. It's not good or bad. I observe you through the objective lens of God as perfectly imperfect and on your journey and exactly where you're supposed to be. And I also love myself enough to set boundaries and know that you have no place in my life. And this is so loving, not only for you, but of them. Because we disempower others on their own personal growth journey when we try to say that we know better than them and don't allow them to go on their own process of healing. But this doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice ourselves to make that happen. So, some relationships will fall away, but there will be relationships that actually endure through this initiation of stepping into your full authentic expression and finding belonging within. And on the other side of this initiation of stepping outside of your comfort zone and becoming someone who you've never been before and acting and showing up in different ways, these relationships will be infinitely stronger. They will have so much more depth to them, so much more intimacy, because people will fully see you, potentially for the first time. And in fully seeing you, they'll get to make their own choice of, do I love and accept this person in the wholeness of who they are? And if they say yes to that, you're going to find true belonging with them. And they're going to love you. They're going to love you for all of you. And you're going to feel free within the containment of their love, potentially for the first time ever. And it's one of the most liberating feelings on this planet, I promise. So it's worth it. It is worth going through this initiation. We really only have a few options when we decide to set a standard for ourselves for the quality of relationships that we want to be in. If someone doesn't meet that standard and we go to them and we communicate, hey, this is how I desire to be treated. This is what boundaries are. Boundaries aren't control of, hey, you have to show up this way. This is how you need to show up. This is how you need to change your behavior. Boundaries actually say, this is the standard that I hold for myself, and I have an expectation that those in my life will meet it. And if you can't, that's okay. I don't judge you for it, but I will lovingly let you go so that you can continue on your journey and find people who are an energetic match for your state of being. That is one of the most loving things that you can do for yourself and for others. Because if you ask them to stay and change their behavior in order to be in your world, you're asking them to fit in with you. They don't have true belonging with you if that's what you're asking them to do. So it's actually a radical act of loving yourself and them to be willing to set those boundaries and let them go if that's what's required. Okay, my loves, this was an epic conversation. If you want to continue this conversation, you want to start to implement these kind of boundaries in your life, you want to start to have the emotional intelligence and the tools available to you to navigate things like confrontation and conflict as you go through this initiation of stepping into radical self-love and belonging within, then inside the Thrival community, I highly encourage you to do the Emergence. The Emergence is a pre-recorded program with trainings on how to find this belonging within yourself, how to hold the heightened emotion that comes with things like confrontation as a highly sensitive person, and how to navigate the shift of these changes, of these energy dynamics, and of this boundary setting as you learn to communicate differently and step into your own personal leadership potential. The Thrival membership is $55 a month, and you get access to over $9,000 of programs throughout the entire year, as well as live monthly mentorship meetups with me, a Q&A thread, and an amazing community of highly sensitive beings who are all on their journey of thriving in prosperity in love, life, and business. So if that sounds like an awesome place for you, come hang out. The description will be below with the link. Sending you so much love wherever you are in the world. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll talk to you really soon.